So following the Bella Bill coming into force, a large number of homeschoolers registered. There were a few issues in different provinces with officials trying to enforce old policies, their own interpretations of the law, etc. But in the main, the process at least has gone relatively smoothly. Some are saying they're dealing with officials they trust and who seem to understand their situation. The question to the panel is this. While this, of course, is a positive thing, relying on the goodwill of officials, is this enough? Juliet and Kevin, what do you think? I might have a little perspective as well, but let's hear from you. Juliet first, maybe?
Yeah, I just think one of the most important things as a home educator, one of the first things you need to be doing is familiarizing yourself with the laws of the country on home education, because um, it's not enough to hear from other people what the law is, what they think the law is. There's a lot, sometimes I see conversations where people are speculating what the law is. And this is not widely known, but I actually currently work for our local authority. And some of my colleagues do work with home educators. And I know that sometimes these people don't fully know the law themselves. So it is for us as home educators to make sure we know the law, so that if you do get a call, if you feel like whoever your municipality, your authority, council, if they are asking something that is not lawful, my favorite thing is to say, well, could you please point out to me where it says that? And send them to go and find it so that they can defend their position. Because if it's not in the law, they're not going to find it. Um, I think in the UK, certainly if we could trust all our local authorities to be respectful and to observe sort of just sensible approach to privacy, um, I think that one doesn't mind quite so much if there is some kind of a register or form of notification. But we have for local authorities here that where their actual stated agenda is to get children back in school. So you know then that they are not there to support you, they're not there to help you. And so you are automatically on the defensive. It's going to impact how you report back. So yeah, I think the goal would be to try and have your local authorities trained to be respectful, to observe the law, and to actually support and to have some positive perspective on home education, not see it as a negative thing.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that, Juliet, and in terms of knowing the law. And if you know the law and you're dealing with an official, even that has goodwill, you can demonstrate that you know what you're talking about and that you won't be easily pushed over by somebody. I cannot tell you, like Juliet, how many times I deal with a government official or a social worker who simply doesn't know what the law is. And even somebody with goodwill, I would say the question was kind of how do you deal with people that are goodwill? And the way I would answer that is that might change the tone of the approach or the manner of the approach, but it will not change whether I would encourage a family or allow them to do something that's not required by law. So we might do it in a different manner because there's not antagonism towards home education, but I still would not give an inch. And I would if they ask for something, for example, that's not required, and this is common, a social worker would show up and say, "Well, I need to come in the person's home, and I have a right to come in their home and look at it." And I say the same thing that Juliet says, which is, that's very interesting because we have the Fourth Amendment in the United States. And so I'm curious what law gives you this right. Could you point that out to me so that I can have that? And usually what they have, even the goodwill person, even the one who's not antagonistic, what they have is a checklist or a standard operating procedure or the local authority standard guidance that they're supposed to follow, which is just an internal policy. There's no law behind it. So for the individual who is in goodwill, I would say still be very educated about the law and the rights that you have. And if there's someone that's goodwill, then you're probably having a more good-natured discussion about, well, this is my understanding of it, as opposed to a more firm, no, you can't do it, or and I do this all the time. Sometimes I'll make a phone call and have a discussion. Sometimes I'll write a very formal, forthright, assertive memorandum to the official, depending on whether I sense that there's any goodwill or whether there's lots of antagonism. So it's going to change your approach to the person, but not necessarily what you would do or not do in a particular circumstance. So that's how I would answer that.
If I can add to that, is that we find some people will say, "Oh, but she was so lovely," and so we were just happy to show off everything we're doing, and we always say, "Well, that's really nice that you had a lovely person, but she may leave, and then you may have somebody else come in, but you've allowed a precedent, and when you allow a precedent, something that is not in law, you actually set the tone for everyone around you." Because we get local authorities saying, "Oh, but we've got this many families that don't mind when we come and visit them at home," and that is not the point. The point is that legally there's no right to do it, but you can change you can change what the approach is of your local authority by what you allow, and so you have to draw that boundary line quite firmly and try and encourage everyone to hold that boundary line very firmly. It's a very tricky one, and we battle with it here because we can't get everyone to be consistent.
Okay, thank you both. I'll just add my own minor comment on the end here, and that is that, yes, in Canada we do have some provinces where there is oversight from a provincial Ministry of Education, and so there are bureaucrats who literally liaise with families, and maybe the families have to report on some sort of regular basis, whether it's just once a year or maybe 2 or 3 times a year, on the progress of their child and so on. And there may be forms they fill out and so on. So there is some interaction between the provincial liaison and the family. And it's certainly the case in some of those provinces that folks who work in those jobs in the bureaucracy are friendly. And some of them have even homeschooled themselves, homeschooled their own children. But at the end of the day, we need to remember that government is not your friend. And as wonderful as some of the bureaucrats may be, at the end of the day, they're not accountable directly to you. They're not your friend, literally. They're accountable to somebody else, and they're accountable to a system that demands certain things of them. Sometimes those things are going to be neutral, and sometimes those things could be hostile to your goals and objectives. So, we tend to advise, as Kevin was saying, yes, obey the law. If you're required to submit a report, submit a report. But don't embellish. Give the minimum required and do it honestly and respectfully, but don't go beyond that, and don't prolong the conversation. If you have to report, you have to report, but just remember that at the end of the day, there can be negative consequences from interacting with government.